Hey, what's up guys, RedKing here, and I have a new video, finally. Also, sorry if I sound like every punk rock singer from the early 2000s, I have a cold and my nose is stuffy. So last week I went to go see a movie I was incredibly hyped for since the beginning. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I loved the first movie, I liked the second one, but this one, oh boy. So as always with my reviews, I'm gonna start by talking about the characters and then get into the story. Now, the Guardians in this movie are something else. Star-Lord is my favorite Guardian, and he was an absolute standout. I love the whole chemistry between him and Gamora, since it's not the same Gamora that he knew. And I especially love how they didn't turn it into a will they won't they situation. And at the end, Star-Lord comes to terms with the fact that this isn't the Gamora that he loved, and he just leaves her be. I also really love where and how everyone's story ends, but more on that later. To be honest, I actually thought Mantis was really good. She brought a lot of good comedy and a lot of emotional moments too, surprisingly, as well as Drax, and Nebula, and Groot, and Cosmo, and Kraglin. Man, there are a lot of these guys, aren't there? I actually thought Adam Warlock was pretty good in this movie. Something I hear a lot is that he didn't have enough screen time, which, yes, but I prefer the term underutilized because Marvel and Disney messed up James Gunn's plan for the Guardians by firing him. So, yeah, he did seem like an afterthought, but I thought he did well. Now for the real standouts in my opinion. Rocket and the High Evolutionary. The fact that they went all out with Rocket's backstory actually brought me to tears several times. I cried like 7 times in the theater. And the reason is High Evolutionary is an absolute butt munch. I don't think I've hated a villain more than I have the High Evolutionary, and I mean that in every positive way possible. Chakotay Iwuji was incredible in John Wick 2 and Peacemaker, but this is the role that is definitely gonna make his phone buzz with casting calls. But another thing I hear a lot is that by the end of this movie, he just turns into one of those villains that just screams at everyone, which, yeah, he does. But he has completely convinced himself that he is God and that his plan won't work without Rocket. So that's really it. Okay, I've ranted enough. Let's get to the story. The movie begins with Baby Rocket. Let the tears commence! He's playing with his other little raccoon buddies when suddenly a giant hand reaches out to him. We see the past Baby Rocket fade into the present day adult Rocket as Creep by Radiohead plays. Now, even though one of my gripes with some movies is licensed music, and I absolutely hate this song, James Gunn knows how to do a soundtrack, and this movie has one hell of a soundtrack. The Guardians are in their new home base of nowhere when all of a sudden Adam Warlock attacks them and injures Rocket. The Guardians fight him while taking care of Rocket, and then Nebula stabs him in the back. It was that easy, huh? But after that, Adam Warlock runs away. They try to heal Rocket, but they find out that the med pack doesn't work, and so Nebula tells Star-Lord to turn it off. They X-ray Rocket and find out he has a kill switch installed in his heart by this company, OrgoCorp. So they make their way to find some override key they need. Now, as Rocket is lying on their little operation table, we flash back to Rocket's creation before he's thrown in with the rest of Batch 89. His first word? Hurts. Yeah, that's exactly how I feel too, buddy! Batch 89 includes an otter named Lila, a walrus named Teefs, and an albino rabbit named Floor, all of which he befriends. We cut to the present day and watch as an altercation goes on between the High Evolutionary and Adam Warlock's creator, Aisha. She tells the High Evolutionary that since Adam Warlock is still mentally a child, that's why he wasn't able to get Rocket. But the High Evolutionary is still pissed that he didn't get Rocket, so he pins Adam Warlock to a wall and threatens Aisha, saying that if he doesn't get Rocket, then he will kill all of the Sovereign. The Guardians reach OrgoCorp when they're stopped by the Ravagers, one of which is Gamora. But this one doesn't remember Star-Lord, doesn't even remember the Guardians. Well, except for Nebula, and that's because, you know, Thanos threw her off a cliff, but then in Endgame they traveled back in time, and this Gamora from 2014 came back and now is with the Ravagers in the present day. It turns out that Nebula called them because she promised them a reward of sorts if they helped them. We cut to Baby Rocket again. He's working with the High Evolutionary and found out he's the best creation of the High Evolutionary, as his brain works better than the rest of the creations. Rocket looks out the window and looks makes it Counter-Earth, the world where all of the High Evolutionary's creatures will go when they've been perfected. But then the High Evolutionary goes and shows Rocket the test for Batch 90. It's a tank full of mist that could evolve a creature over millions of years in the span of 10 seconds. But there's a problem. They all come out angry and aggravated and whatnot. Rocket explains the reason for this is because as the creatures are evolving, their brain chemistry is changing. So if they fix that, then they'll be perfect. So they fix it, and it works. So now High Evolutionary is pissed because he found out that his own creation is smarter than him. So he orders that Rocket's brain is extracted and that the rest of Batch 89 are killed by the morning. Rocket is thrown back in his cell, but secretly created a key so that he could escape. He frees himself and Lila, but Lila is killed by the High Evolutionary, like, immediately. Rocket is immediately heartbroken. So what does he do? Claws up the High Evolutionary's face. Rocket kills the High Evolutionary's guards, but when he turns around, he sees that Teefs and Floor are also dead. So Rocket makes a quick escape and flies away. When I watched this scene, I was heartbroken, angry, and shocked all at once. The scene is now genuinely one of my favorite scenes in all of cinema just because of how much you feel it. So now the Guardians are at OrgoCorp and we have a bunch of cameos from just about everyone in a James Gunn movie. Daniela Melchior, Nathan Fillion, Jennifer Holland. Again, just about everyone in a James Gunn movie. Now before you tell me that, oh, James Gunn keeps putting his friends and family in his movies too much. Look at this list. Just look at it. So they get Daniela Melchior's character to give them the file on Rocket so that they can override the kill switch. And after a fight in the main room of OrgoCorp, they head back to their ship and read the file. They find out that the code isn't in the file, and someone took it out and placed it in a brain extension computer thing in his head. I don't know how to describe it. But Gamora isn't cool with this, so she tells one of her Ravager buddies to pick her up. But it turns out that he was captured by Aisha and Adam Warlock, and since Gamora gives them her location, they're gonna be on the way to steal Rocket. So the Guardians make it to Counter-Earth. Star-Lord and Groot meet the High Evolutionary and he explains his plan like every good villain does and threatens to kill them. So he tells one of his henchmen who's like this cyber pig thing. I don't know, I'm just gonna call it Bebop. So he tells Bebop that the Guardians have Rocket and to go get them. So now we have Gamora back at the ship with Rocket. And so now we have Bebop trying to steal Rocket, Adam Warlock trying to steal Rocket, and Gamora trying to protect Rocket. But the High Evolutionary departs from Counter-Earth, so now the planet is exploding and everyone is trying to make it out alive. Groot and Star-Lord start fighting the High Evolutionary's henchmen while trying to find the guy with the code in his computer in his head. They find him and tackle him out of the ship and rip that computer that has the code out of his head. But Nebula, Mantis, and Drax still think that Star-Lord and Groot are on the High Evolutionary's ship. So they board just in time, only to find children in cages? Question mark? What's that about? Meanwhile, Star-Lord, Groot, and Gamora try to save Rocket, but it's too late. He's seen the light. He's entered the void. He sees his friends, Lila, Teefs, and Floor, and he's happy now. Just kidding, he's all fine. So now that Rocket is okay, Star-Lord asks where the rest of them are, and Nebula tells him that they're on the High Evolutionary's ship looking for them. But Star-Lord tells her that they're on the Guardians' ship. But Rocket butts in, and they all have an emotional moment where they find out Rocket was saved. So the High Evolutionary finds Nebula, Mantis, and Drax on his ship, and he imprisons them. Star-Lord starts piloting the Guardians' ship and tells Kraglin back on Nowhere to fly towards his location. Star-Lord flies the ship towards the High Evolutionary's ship so that they can all save Nebula, Mantis, and Drax. And so they finally get together and initiate the coolest one-take corridor fight scene I've ever seen. I could watch that thing on repeat. Rocket finally reaches the section of the ship with all the imprisoned animals, and after years of denial, Rocket finally finds out that yes, he is a raccoon. But the High Evolutionary finds him and beats him up before the rest of the Guardians come to help, and Gamora rips his mask off, revealing the most horrifying thing I've seen in a Marvel movie to date. They try to get Rocket to kill the High Evolutionary, but he won't, because he doesn't want to be like him. After that, the Guardians save all the children and animals and creatures on the ship so that they can board Nowhere. Cosmo the dog comes in handy, helping the ship and Nowhere stay connected so that everyone can board safely. But she loses connection, and Star-Lord gets lost in the void of space and dies. Psych, he's saved by Adam Warlock. After that, all the Guardians come together to say their goodbyes. Gamora leaves to go be with the Ravagers, Star-Lord is going back to Earth to connect with his grandpa, Mantis leaves to discover herself, Nebula leaves to focus on building Nowhere's society with Drax accompanying her, and that leaves Rocket as the leader. And that's it! Just kidding, this is a Marvel movie! We have a mid-credit scene with new Guardians consisting of Rocket, Groot, Adam Warlock, Kraglin, and Cosmo, and a newcomer known as Phyla, who's one of the rescued kids, and a post-credit scene that establishes that Star-Lord will make his return in a separate project. So what do I think of this movie? It's incredible. I love the characters and their chemistry. High Evolutionary is an absolutely incredible villain, and everyone has a role to play. The story is absolutely heartbreaking. The comedy was well timed. Everyone's story ends fantastically, and as usual with a James Gunn movie, it has an absolute baller soundtrack. So that's it for my review of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, leave a like, and if you didn't, leave a dislike, and also screw you. Let me know what movie you think I should review next in the comments. Subscribe, turn on post notifications, and I will see you next time. Goodbye, fellow YouTubers of YouTubing.